This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accounting insiders to learn more. All right. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary DeHart. I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My guest today is Ben Richmond, who is the country manager US for Xero. And he and I are going to be discussing the journey to becoming a true advisor and kind of how the tech stack implications evolve through that journey. And then ultimately, how do you start it? Because I think there's a lot of challenge, right? We hear, oh, you got to be an advisor. Oh, the tech stack is critical. Without the right tech stack, you can't be a good advisor. And then we get frozen, and I say we as a profession get frozen with, well, there's 8,000 steps. Can you just get me to step one so I can get to step two and I can get this thing built out? So Ben, thank you so much for joining me and taking a little bit of time today.
Perfect. No, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So what does country manager mean? You're here in the U.S. and so what falls under that title?
Yeah, so core responsibility is really looking after Xero's growth here in the US market. So when we think about growing our customers, our revenue, and being an advocate and champion for our small business customers and the accountants and bookkeepers, which are our number one partners that support those small business clients. So representing our customers, our people, and obviously making sure our business is growing sustainably here in the US. So it's a pretty exciting role.
Yeah, and so when we were kind of in our pre-discussion here, you said you've been in the U.S. for 6 years. Is that right?
Yeah, based here in Colorado and Denver for about 6.5 years. Prior to that was obviously you can tell by the accent from the deep south. So I spent the first 4 years of my, coming up 10.5 years at Xero. So about the first 4 years were actually leading growth in the New Zealand market, where Xero was born back in 2006. And my career started off in public practice. So I'm a chartered accountant. I've done 5 years in public practice, went through a bit of time in telco corporate, and then joined Xero 10.5 years ago. So it's been a super exciting ride.
Yeah, that's great. So, actually, even before when we were chatting, I asked you what you prefer better, the public side or being on the vendor side serving, but I left out the corporate side or industry. Not sure what you call it down under, but so of the three, so you have kind of three areas that you've worked in. What would you prefer, or what's your preference?
Yeah, they've definitely all got their pros and cons. I definitely think it probably is serving the profession from this side. And the reason I say that is when I was, most of my family are in small business. I've seen them have great accounting advice. I've seen them have, be left on their own and have challenges from that. And when I was in public practice, I could always see, hey, we are a trusted advisor. We have this really trust that we're not capitalizing on because, back then cloud wasn't even a thing. And so for me, it's actually, I believe in the profession. I believe in the power of what it can do when it's using great technology and has that deep connection with small business. And it's the combination of that is where the power happens. And so for me, I feel like being on the Xero side, it's the profession I'm proud of, and I can have a greater impact on that from this side.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's certainly, Xero, you've been there since not day one, but pretty close to it, right?
Yeah,
pretty early days.
I think it's the first couple of hundred employees, so it's been awesome to see, and it's a really unique experience too. And working in different parts of the world, there is a lot that is the same, and there's a lot that is different. And it's kind of useful, right? Every different market's at a different phase of cloud adoption or the different journey. Exactly what we're going to talk about today on the journey to advisory, and you can definitely see differences in markets and things that you can share between different countries.
Absolutely. And so we're talking about a true advisor, trusted advisor. We hear that, talking heads say that all the time, but I like that term, true advisor. So what does that mean to you? What does a true advisor look like?
Yeah, I think a true advisor to start with is still nailing what the basics and the foundation of what accounting and bookkeeping is, right? When you think about the foundation of tax planning, financial statements, and accounting and advice around that. They are going beyond that, though. They are now a true strategic advisor to small business that is regularly connected to them, with them, providing many different types of value-add solutions. The term is super broad, right? You could probably ask 20 different people in the US to come and you get 20 different examples. But for me, they're still nailing the basics because I think you cannot think about advisory and compliance work separately. They're actually connected like an infinity wheel, right? If we're starting to do regular bookkeeping with our clients or supporting them to do that, we're having a more regular interaction with them. That is going to make the client more sticky and the tax return way more efficient and effective to do at the end of the year, right? So it actually has benefits to your tax practice. But the connection and capacity that you're going to create by being on the right technology and having more of a regular engagement with your client is what gives you that opportunity to start to see what's happening in their business and start to provide that proactive advice. I think a true advisor, it's not just about, hey, I'm going to advise you on what the P&L says. You need to understand, you need to understand beyond the numbers. You need to think about, you need to help with business planning, goals, bringing into elements around, there's a lot more subjectivity when you think about, you're talking to business owners that might be working through family stress and all those sorts of things. So being an advisor is it's a bit more scarier than just, following, say, a tax prep checklist.
Right.
So you're getting alongside the small business, you're understanding, you're having empathy with them, you're helping them set goals, you're helping them, what are the goals? How are we going to track those? What are the lead and lag indicators? How are we going to set up the right technology systems? So you're actually becoming almost like a full managed service shop. What's the right technology stack that we should be using in your business? What are the right? It's not just putting that in; it's also what's the right processes and efficiency changes you do when you do that. And then you're starting to then help them understand what those insights mean, and then you're looking far ahead in the future, right? So you're helping them navigate challenging times. You're helping them map out different scenarios. You're looking, really helping them get their arms around their cash flow. The last thing I'd say too, and it's as we get into more of the journey of advisory, if you want to be a true advisor, then there's two sort of things I always say. There's two attributes I see in the best ones that I've worked with. One, they're doing it on themselves. The old saying, if you're not eating, you should eat your own dog food,
Right.
Which is, if you're running a practice, that's also a business. So are you running your practice in the way that you're trying to, you're doing the advisory on yourself? Because if you're not, it's not really genuine to be then trying to, that's the foundation. The second thing is, you need to be experts in the client's industries that you're serving, right? So if you're going to go beyond the numbers, be that true advisor. And so that also means, I can't be an expert on every industry. And so, I might serve every client in my traditional compliance practice, but where we're going to build this true advisory practice, we're going to pick one or two vertical niches and really double down on that and make sure we have, skill set, capability and understanding of those industries. Because a big part of that is helping the client understand, if you're a real estate client, here's how you're performing against what we see as real estate benchmarks.
Right. Yeah. So in your travels, and with all the firms that you work with on a daily basis, I'm sure, what kind of percentage are you seeing that are true advisors, as you just kind of defined it?
Yeah, there's not. Not done from any statistical sampling. I'd say, look, the amount of people saying they're doing CAS services, right? And some people call that client accounting services. Some people call that client advisory services. That's about half the sector now, and about, it's the fastest growing service line. But going back to Ture Advisory, I still think you're probably only looking down at 10% of the market, if that are really, really, not just doing outsourced bookkeeping in the cloud, but actually all those things I mentioned in the prior question, they're really nailing that. And when you talk to their small business clients, they would say, this person is a strategic advisor and partner they're almost like part of my team. So we've still got a long way to go.
Right. And then what have you seen kind of HR services creeping into the overall advisory services?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen firms, the best of breed that we're seeing out there, the compliance machine is still there. It's part of it somewhere in the building, but really they're a full managed service shop for small business, because small businesses don't have an IT department. They don't have an HR department. And so again, you can start to wrap all these different services around your offering. And you got to think about the different skill sets you bring in to do that. So we are seeing that, and small businesses absolutely need that help. I think the challenge we've got at the moment, though, is a lot of small businesses, don't know where to go. When you ask them, where do you go to for this type of help? They say, well, I don't really know. I
Right.
go to, I ask a friend. I've got a friend who's an HR. I've got a friend who's a CPA. And when you ask, well, who could or should be able to provide this service, they'll say, well, maybe my bookkeeper or my accountant or my CPA. When you ask the profession the same question, they say, well, maybe it's us, but does the client really want it from us? So there's this weird, we need to do a bit of, we sort of say, hey, small businesses that are out there stressing, doing it on, DIY, doing it on their own. We need to bring these two groups of people together and go, hey, it's smarter to do it together. And because, the your small business client is just going to come out and ask you for it, right? And so I think it's been really, talking with your clients, listening to them, to then go build your service lines based on that, and then going out and being proactive. I mean, I've seen it with even some of my own interactions with professional services that I work with, where I'm almost feeling like I'm begging and asking for advisory. So we've got work to do there on sort of marrying the two.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about just our business and some meetings we've had previously with past accountants where we go to the meeting and talk about X, Y, and Z, but the budget wasn't even brought up. It's like, well, how can I have a meeting with my accountant and not even talk about a budget? And and that's just a core. I mean, that's like a baseline, right? That should be minimum discussion.
Step one. We've actually, when we go later on into sort of the journey, like that's just getting that regular engagement with your clients and starting to do some of the basics with them, like a budget and a forecast and checking on that budget. That's actually where that's the lowest hanging fruit and the best sort of first step into it. But it gets missed so often. And I think it's just inertia, right? We're so used to the annual engagement. We're so used to the tax piece. And I heard this funny story. It's like, if you think about the tax pressure that our practices are under, where they sort of almost have to shut shop for anything other than tax for 3 months while they get the tax done. Imagine if your doctor or your general practitioner was like that, where you rang them and for 2 months of the year they just couldn't see you because they were too busy. It wouldn't be great.
Right. Too busy. Call us when you feel better. Right. Yeah. It's not how it works. So you touched on niche as you were talking. Are you seeing the companies or the firms that you are seeing that you would call true advisors? Are they leaning towards specific niches within their practice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're going to do it properly, you need that. So we sort of talk about, we talked about it earlier. There's this broad term of advisory, and everyone's going to conferences and hearing thought leaders and advisory, and blockchain, and the profession comes back, and the quantum leap just seems so far that a lot of people are too scared to make the first step. And for me, I sort of break it down to there's 3 phases that you want to go through, right? The first phase is practice efficiency, which is really about digitizing your current practice and your current practice service lines, which is tax and all the things we're doing today. That is and there's huge production efficiency in doing the work you do today on online technology, which helps you connect with the client, collaborate with the client, get documents from the clients easy, all those sort of things. Practice management, all the core fundamental basics are in that part. If you work on that first, you can then you see that your tax return business will become faster. You can either then go, I want to do more tax business, or actually, what am I going to do with this connection that I've now that we're in the cloud, I'm connected to the client better than I ever have been, and I have capacity that I didn't have. Those 2 things are what then enable you to move into the advisory journey. And I break it into 2, simple and complex. And if I think about simple advisory, that is regular engagement with the client, budgeting, cash flow forecasting. And I say to firms, hey, this isn't scary. This is stuff we all learn to do. This is stuff we all do today. We've only ever been able to do it for our big clients with a massive amount of Excel involved. But now with the right technology, we can take that down to the mom and pop size small business.
Right.
We did a survey a few years back, and if you looked at if the advisory revenue uplift opportunity was $10, $6.50 of that sat in that simple advisory bucket. And so what I say to our firms is, it is not scary to digitize your practice, get connected with your client better, and move into simple advisory. Your teams have the skill sets to do that today. When you move into complex advisory, and as I say, break it down into steps, I see a lot of firms trying to go straight to complex. We now have a cloud practice. We now have We're now doing simple advisory, which is regular engagement with the client. That's going to make the tax return business even better, and the client's more sticky. Then as moving to complex advisory, that's where we start to go, right, we actually want to help them with maybe managed services around IT, technology stacks, HR, as you mentioned before. We might want to pick a couple of vertical niches that we become experts in. That is where we really become the true advisor, right? So if I pick real estate, for instance, that is where the firms, and I say to firms, like, there's lots of different parts of complex advisory. Might be startup mentoring, might be capital raising assistance, all that sort of stuff. So you pick one or two things in there. I'd be picking a couple of vertical niches and getting really smart on the right technology stack for those vertical niches. At that point, too, I say to practices, that is where you might need to think about the skill sets of your people, and you might want to bring some people into the practice that have deep experience in those verticals. Just someone that's been in the real estate sector, right, so that they can layer on that deeper knowledge as well. So we sort of say to firms, break it up. Step 1, 2, 3. One is just going to make the practice you to do it today more profitable and give you more time. That's going to allow you to move into then doing a simple advisory piece. That gives you the best platform to move to the complex advisory piece. And one of those things might be cryptocurrency accounting or blockchain. The reason I say that is, I came out of Engage a few years ago, and there was a partner came out and he was absolutely mind blown and was terrified of blockchain. He just went to a blockchain. One of the thought leaders has done a big special thing on blockchain, and he said, "Ben, what do we do?" And I asked about his practice, and he was still 95% desktop. And so I think this is the thing, I've sort of said this in a lot of the professional groups that I've been involved in, that we've got to start breaking this down into a journey, because we all try to out-innovate each other. We all try to sound more innovative than the other person. The vendors are guilty of this. The professional bodies are guilty of this. The thought leaders are. Where we just, we're trying to get them to go to Mars before we put us, wheels on the suitcase. So that's why I love to break it down into that sort of 3-step journey.
Well, that's great. And that actually leads very well into kind of our next topic, which is the tech stack. And it's a term that's been used. I'm going to ask you to define it, even though most of our listeners probably already know what a tech stack is, but make sure everybody's on the same baseline. What is a tech stack?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think at its core, it's the group of softwares that you're going to use. So I break into two elements, right? There's the technology stack for your practice that enables you to run your practice, interact with your clients, and provide the services we're talking about here, right? Excuse me. So what is the right technology stack of applications and software that is working together seamlessly as best as possible to deliver the services that I need from the practice? Then, of course, it's the same for your clients. What is the right technology stack? So if the vertical niche I've picked is real estate, what is the right technology stack that I should use for my real estate client, or my real estate client should use? There's obviously the accounting piece, there's expense management, there's a payroll element, there might be how we manage listings and commissions. And as we know, right, we've come from a world where we used to have to use out of the box software that was like jack of all trades, that a cafe, a plumber, and a farmer would all use the thing. So this best of breed approach, right, where you put in the best breed real-time accounting engine, what's the right industry-specific front-end app, and what are the other apps in the back office and front office that I need to use to run my business. So that is the technology stack you can run for your business, and it's relevant to your client. And again, if you're going to be a true advisor, you're going to need to think about how you give them advice and education on that, because there's not many places they actually have to go for that. And that's not just knowing what apps to use, that's knowing how to implement them, but also then how to go in and re-engineer processes, right? Because using cloud software, it has different hardware means. The example I use is I once walked into a business that had been moved to a cloud technology stack for its industry by an accountant, and they'd done the conversion beautifully, but that business was still using it like it was desktop software. There was still a person sitting in an office. It was an engineering business with trucks going out to do jobs on site. Okay. And they were still doing manual paper job cards, and people out on site filling out job cards, bringing it back to the person in the office to put into the invoicing system. And really the power of that's going to actually, people in the truck should have iPads, right, that enter the information as the job's done. It's faster, less errors, less things get missed. The salesperson out quoting jobs should have that information in their hand as well, so they have better quoting power. And almost they should be able to have an invoice leaving, go to the client before the truck gets back to the site. So it's not only knowing the technology stack, it's knowing how to implement it and re-engineer the processes to get the maximum efficiency from it. And so for us as advisors, what's that technology stack for us, and how we work with our clients, and how are we going to help our clients find that out for themselves as well?
And so it really does. I mean, it's getting, for it to be perfect, which there is no perfect, but it needs to be an end-to-end solution, right? From
Yeah.
start to finish for your practice. And you think it's getting if I'm a practitioner, it's setting myself up first, right? I've got to have a solid tech stack internally before before I can go out and tell my clients, hey, you need to be doing
Yeah.
everything cloud-based, have a better tech stack, and not still pen and paper, which I am still pen and paper for a lot of things. I do still like that, but
Yeah, and there's always a degree of there's still going to be pen and paper, and it's still I'm the same even though I work for a cloud company. But as you say, like, and there is no perfect solution. I think really two things I'd always say is one, build a list of your needs.
yeah,
Think about the services you provide, the capabilities you're going to need. Break them down into critical must-haves, important to haves, and then nice to haves. And then as you go out there and assess the different technologies that are out there, you can sort of work out which one's going to check most of the boxes on. Obviously, you got to have most of the critical ones have to be solved. And also challenge. I always said, with moving from desktop to cloud, people think, I'm with this vendor, so I'll just go to their cloud version. It'll be all the cloud products are totally different than the desktop products, right? You've got platforms like us, Xero, that were born in the cloud that don't have legacy desktop. So I always encourage firms to go, it's a big change, step back and really look at all the different vendors. Think about, integrations and APIs are critical. So who's got an open ecosystem so that you can build, and then which vendors are really going to support you on that journey as well, right? So who's going to, exactly like you're going to do for your small business clients, are those vendors going to come into your practice and help you build the right technology stack for your practice, help coach and train your people on how to re-engineer the processes to maximize the benefit you get from it. Examples, practice management. It's quite scary in the US how many firms don't use proper practice management. They might have one, but if you ask them, do you have a strategy for your firm? Do you have key service pillars and service lines in your firm? And how do you track success? As an example, you often hear we do payroll for clients. It makes them stickier. And we do it as a loss leader. So it's pretty much a 5% margin job. The amount of times I ask a practice, well, what margin are you getting? And are you seeing those clients be more sticky? They can't actually tell you that. So as you think about practice, they say, what is our strategy? How are we measuring that strategy? And is our practice management actually set up to report on the lead and lag indicators that show that strategy is being successful or not, or where we need to pivot? And that, to your point, is putting the right technology in for you, and doing advisory on yourself before you go out and do it on others.
Yeah, and I think where small business, that probably most businesses get hung up, even in the thought process on it, is, well, how am I going to grow my business if I'm spending all these hours building a tech stack or researching a tech stack, or how do I decide where to start and which products are kind of the must-have? Do you have any insight on that? And again, we'll stick on the firm side. If how do you begin that journey, and what's the number one thing I have to do? I think you already kind of mentioned it's centered around the GL, right?
Yeah.
And so
So the quick answer on small businesses, there are great accountants and bookkeepers that are doing this well out there that will help you identify that technology stack, put it in and do the change. For our firms, my first piece of advice, and I said we saw this in some research a couple of years ago, don't just do glitzy stuff first, right? A lot of people go, I'm going to move. We did a whole piece of research around what things you should move first. What we found when most firms are doing the fun stuff, I want a fun forecasting tool or a really cool engagement tool with the client. And we're leaving a lot of the core foundational things like proper practice management, how you manage documents, and all those things were being left because that's, changing practice management in a firm is not fun. And so they were leaving a lot of those core and so what we saw was firms that actually ended up, might be a little bit slower at the start, but ended up coming up much faster and realizing better efficiencies and more revenue growth opportunities were the ones that did the hard stuff first. So it is practice management. What is the GL I'm using, right? I need a GL that my clients can use off-site that's in the cloud. I also need a GL that can be used where my clients might use something different. But I need my cloud GL for write-up and full service bookkeeping to be all on the cloud. I still need to be able to service non-cloud clients because there are still some. And so, for instance, we've done that with Xero where we have a basic write-up GL. So we recognize not all your clients are going to be on Xero, so there's a basic write-up GL. So you as a firm can run a consistent GL platform in the cloud without having to force your clients to the cloud in the short, because we know that's a journey. And then all your practice tools should be working really tightly aligned around that GL, connected to see what the client's doing. how you manage your clients, how you collaborate with your clients, how you get documents from them. I mean, we see this a lot, right? I mean, everyone's had an experience with getting your clients hate having to get their documents to their accountant. It's usually a really frustrating task. Don't batch it. They usually leave it to the end of the period or the end of the year. And then we're going into these horrible portals and it's just confusing. And so think about, put yourself in your client's shoes and go, let's make it really easy for them to put stuff in on the go or automate stuff getting in there on the go so that we almost, you see it like tools like HubDoc and that, the client can set up so that they're just, as documents arise throughout the business's journey, it's automatically turning up in the accounting GL. So that when you get to the end of the year, you're chasing a few documents by exception as opposed to having to go and find the whole year. So all of those things are critical. And then you start to think about as we move through those phases of advisory, right? As we go to simple advisory, what's going to be the right tool for budgeting and forecasting for the clients? Is it a Spotlight? Is it a Futurely or a Sift Analytics? Those tools that can plug into the accounting GLs and give you that really nice, more advanced forecasting, dashboarding, cash flow management, and advisory tools that firms will use. And then as you go into complex advisory, you're like, right, well, now I need to build a technology stack that's going to help me, look after real estate clients. So it's a lot when I just reflect on just things I just said then. It's like it's a lot, but the thing is, start with yourself. Put your vendors to task, right? It's one thing I challenge our teams at Xero. This is a really hard task our partners are going through, and we need to show up. We need to be in their offices, helping them go through this. We need to be creating community. So my biggest advice is the cool thing about I find the accounting profession is this really nice competition. People love to share, and there's so many partners that are in this journey, are through this journey, that want to share. Hey, if I was to do this again, I would do this, but I wouldn't make this mistake. So make sure you are connecting into those communities to learn and get advice. And again, your vendors should be helping you go through that journey as well around training, coaching, implementation.
And I think one of my questions here, you touched on a little bit, and that was, how do you stay on top of kind of that ever-changing landscape, right? Because we were both just at Scaling New Heights a couple of weeks ago, and there was, 130 exhibitors on the floor, probably, 5 solutions for every segment of your practice, if not more. How do you keep up with it? I mean, it's impossible to keep up with that, especially as a small firm, right? It's not like you have 2 people who are your technology people who are out testing tech every day. I like what you said about being networked and staying within the community, whether it's local community, whether it's going out to events and participating in, you've got your road show coming up, or events like a Scaling New Heights or, XeroCon, which it needs to be here every year, not every 3 years. Every year. Send that back to New Zealand. We want it every year in the States.
Absolutely.
But I think I just want to highlight that one more time, because I think that's so key what you said, and that is being within the community and that involvement, that engagement within the community. And and I think sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know how to get engaged. Well, it just starts either with the phone call. I mean, there's no reason for us not to be engaged now, right? We have every tool ever known to man that allows us to find people who are doing what we do, or to find, ways to get educated in our business. Again, whether it's publishing for me, or, cloud software for you, or, accounting professionals. So let me ask you this around the tech stack. And I asked this question, gosh, it was at the Sleater show, which that will tell you how long ago this question came up. But I asked it was Rod Drury, and I can't remember. There was a gentleman, I think he was American and an Asian name. I think he's out of, maybe lives in San Francisco now, but does Xero, and I won't even just label it just Xero, but do the general ledgers. Do you guys kind of pick winners in the tech stack? And if it's not a fair question, just say, lawyers won't let me answer that question. But
no, I think no. So we have so firstly, we believe in an open ecosystem, right? We believe in so if you take, for example, our reporting apps that integrate with the Xero GL, Futurely, Spotlight, Fathom, Sift, all of those ones and there's many more, right? I've probably missed a few. we like the fact that it's almost like a competitive marketplace in there, right? And you see that they are all, some of them pick certain parts, certain niches they want to be better at. And some of them, and there's a competitive landscape which drives them to all be better. And so we think that dynamic actually is best for the customer, best for the partner.
Right.
However, we have just in our app marketplace, we've started to make it easier for customers to identify, like if it's an app by vertical, lots of customer reviews that are in there, so you can start to see, hey, which ones are used more heavily, which ones have better reviews, and you can actually jump in there. But we've definitely, as we've thought about things like key verticals. What's important for Xero is that we create a level playing field to stay true to that open platform promise, right? But we do pick winners from time to time. Farming actually was a really good example where we actually went out and met with farmers, farm accountants, farm bankers, the associations that support farmers, and went, what should the blueprint for business management in the cloud look like across what should Xero do? What should the farming app do? And how it interact with the different rural suppliers. And we built this blueprint with that industry. And then we went out to all the farm softwares and said, whoever builds to this best, because this is what the industry said they need, it's not what Xero said they need, we will call our preferred farming software partner. But again, a level playing field, right? Because if two vendors build to that, then we would have two vendors that we think are delivering to what the industry said. So from time to time, we do pick vertical partners and go deep with them. And we do try within our app marketplace to make it easier to understand some of the clear winners. But we have to have a careful balance of going, hey, one of our advantages is this competitive marketplace. We've created an ecosystem.
Right. And just clarifying on that, so if I'm a Xero user or a Xero accountant, I go out to the marketplace. Everything that I find on the marketplace, has Xero kind of put their hands on it, and you've tested it. You know it works, it syncs, and it does what it says it does. Is that a
Yes, so firstly, you can sign up to be a developer on the platform at developer.xero.com, and so anyone can integrate the software to us. If you want to be on that app, man, and again, for any of that software to integrate to one of our customers, they have to authorize that connection to go live, right? Because our customers run, the owner of the subscription runs where their data goes. If you want to be on our app marketplace, you need to come in and get certified. And so we do go in and look at, is the integration built sensibly? We do look at their support models. We do a beta with them to see some joint customers on Xero and their platform to see how it's working. And we do test that some of the things they're saying around their integration with Xero are true and fair. So there is a degree of hurdles you've got to get through to be on the app marketplace. And then of course we have the customer reviews that then go live that we monitor to make sure that the apps are getting that. And we do that by region, right? So there might be a great app in the UK that hasn't localized for the US. And so they need to come and get recertified to be on the US app marketplace.
Okay. So we're going to start moving towards wrapping up before we run out of time. So we've talked about being a true advisor and kind of what that looks like. We've talked about the tech stack and the critical importance of tech stack, which it certainly is. And it's funny, we're right now considering moving over to HubSpot, like as our marketing tool. And it's, I'm like, yes, it sounds good. Actually, the pricing is pretty good where they landed with us. But the thought of moving to something like that, I mean, now's the right time for us to do it because it's summer, so it's a little bit slower time period for us. But just the thought of it, I mean, there's so many unknowns that I really don't want to do it. At least I know what I have with what we work with now, but moving to that, I know it's going to be time, not as much of an investment. It's more about the time involvement, which is kind of the scary part to me. So with that, how do we implement? So, you said you guys did some research. Is there anything that Xero has that can help accounting firms kind of guide themselves through this process of implementing tech?
Yeah, so firstly, I can talk about, sort of answer that two ways. One is if you're a Xero partner, which if you go to Xero.com, you can become a partner. We actually have an account management team that will help you. We'll form a collaboration plan with you. We'll come in and understand your practice workflows. And we'll also help bring in some of those different apps that you can help. If you're looking at what reporting app to use, we'll help connect you with those right players as you look at, because Xero's practice management and the cloud-based solution for you, or you want to use one of the other ones that plays nicely with us. And so we'll actually help take you on that journey. And I always said we also break that up into sort of like a test and learn journey. Right? Let's start with testing the GL. Let's start with testing the reporting around the GL. Now you're getting more scale. Let's look at how we test more of the practice platform, and then what are the other apps around the practice, around how you build your clients, how you do your engagement letters, things like, example, practice ignition. And so we'll help you navigate that, right? So basically, so if you're not with Xero, that's fine. Ask your vendor, because your vendor should be helping you through this. Or there are lots of groups that are out there. The Scaling New Heights community is a great. The Widow Group's a great example.
Right.
There's the industry bodies that run various education and events. So there's always ones where you can get connected. But yeah, it's still a hard place. So do your research, do your own research, talk to your colleagues and your connections across the profession, try and get connected into some of those groups and networks. And then ask your vendor, because it's in your vendor's best interest to help you through that, because we know it's a big journey. But once you're through it, and to your example before, right, there is pain. There's always pain when you start that process, and you've got to take an ROI approach to it, which is, I know that this is going to hurt in the short,
Right.
but how do we make sure we can minimize that? There's always going to be some hurt and change. How do we minimize that as best as possible? But how do we stay clear-eyed to the reason we're doing this is we're going to be able to take this cost out of the business. We're going to be able to grow revenue in this area. And we're going to create a whole lot of flexibility in the way we work that we haven't had before. The other 3 areas of ROI that's worth this pain, and then pick the timing. The other problem is I find a lot of people, everyone's always busy, right? We'll be out tax season, then it's industry event season, then it's 4th of July, summer vacay, then it's tax extension season. Then before we know it, it's holidays and it's Halloween and Thanksgiving and the holiday break, and then boom, back into tax season again. So we're always busy. You've just got to pick that moment and go, and just make sure you've got the right support network around you.
Gotcha. All right, hold on. Sorry, had to kick my wife out. She was just around the corner. I'm like, I can hear you. So, all right, let's. All right, we can pick back up here. So, yeah, so there is challenges in onboarding, and it is daunting. But I think, again, highlighting what you just said there, and that is, you have to look at the long term. What am I gaining from it? Yes, I'm going to have some pain. Excuse me, I'm going to have some pain now. And it's going to be frustrating now and maybe for an unforeseen time. But if it's the right thing to do for the business at the right time, then at some point you got to jump and you got to make the move, right?
Yeah, and I think a big one. So, the first one is, people often, you're not going to, with your old system you're in or the old processes you had, you're not going to get everything in the new system. And I think a lot of people get hung up on one or two things. There's some critical things that you just have to have, right? So I totally understand that. But what I say to people is, anything you go to that's new is going to give you all these added benefits and all these added time short savings and things that you didn't before. There might be a couple of areas where it slows you down, and that's okay as well. What you want to make sure is, if I'm taking 10 steps forward and 4 steps back in the new solution, I'm still net 6 steps ahead,
Right.
and that's what I'm going for. So don't get too hung up on the market. The other piece too, just going back to your point around all these vendors we get hit with and all this technology, and next week there's a new app. Remember, strategy should drive the technology, not technology driving the strategy. So when you think about the strategy for your practice, going back to that journey model, right? I'm going to start with practice efficiency first, which is getting the core parts of my practice as it is today online first. And then I'm going to move into simple advisory and start building and budgeting. So, right now I might be ignoring the fancy app that's out there for advanced AI insights around reporting for a specific vertical, because my strategy, we're at step 1. And then we get to step 2, we start looking at reporting and dashboarding apps. And so as you follow that strategy and that journey, that's helping you work out which apps to look at and assess. And then as you go to complex advisory, then you're right, I need something that's going to be really powerful for vertical niche I've picked. So now I know which apps to go look at. Mm-hmm. And so that helps you distill the massive amounts of things that are out there. And then you do need to keep your eyes out because there's just so much stuff coming. I mean, the generative AI stuff's coming at us super quick. But be measured, be excited by it, embrace it, but be measured. Like don't turn it on tomorrow just because you have to. And again, there are lots of partners in our network that just love turning all this stuff on. There's some real technology geeks out there, and a new app comes up and they'll learn it. So if you help into the right networks, you'll meet partners that love testing all that stuff. Doesn't need to be you jump in on day one.
Right. Yeah. And it's, again, going back, stay networked, or if you're not, get networked, get into the space. All right. And as we wrap up, so how do people, excuse me, how do people find you? And how do people find Xero? Like, where are you going to be? I know we've got road shows coming up. Actually, I think there's one going right now, isn't there? Or do you just have one?
We've got one. So in 2 weeks' time, we kick off. I think it's the 27th of July in Austin. Then the week after, we're in Atlanta. And then we head to LA. So I think if you just Google Xero Roadshow Accelerate, it'll come up with 3 locations. Lots of Xero senior leaders going to be there. Lots of Xero partners at all stages of the journey are going to be there. A lot of technology partners will be there. A lot of thought leaders from the profession talking about topics relevant, and it's CPE. So it's a great way to get involved. My email is ben.richmond@xero.com. If you get stuck trying to find the right person, I'm always happy to help. But we also at xero.com, go to the accounts and bookkeepers section, become a partner. There is no commitments to becoming a partner with us. What that will do, it will give you a free version of our Xero HQ, a free version of Xero to play with. You might want to use for yourself or a charity. And it gives you access to our account management team, who are going to start to connect you into the Xero community. We have Xero ambassadors, which are firms that have done it. So, check out the site, become a partner, and that actually helps you into that community really well, where you'll be able to hear about all the different events coming up.
Okay. And then any other events that are not the ones that you're hosting, but that you're exhibiting at?
So we've been we've been at Latino Tax Fest, just gone scaling new
heights.
We've been at Engage. So still lots. We do a lot of local events as well. Our big XeroCon in Sydney is about to hit in August, which is sort of like over 4,000 accounts and bookkeepers from around the world go to. We'll have XeroCon back here in the US next year, which is exciting. And then
in 2024?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So we'll have a bigger announcement coming out on dates and where that will be. So always lots of events, and we're generally showing up at most of the AB events out there. Probably the most exciting thing was we just recently announced, as part of Xero Day, which is the day we were founded, so it was our 17th birthday, we're launching the Beautiful Business Fund. So we've often had awards for our partners, and that we wanted to do something for our small business clients. There's over $400,000 in grants that we're going to be giving out as part of the Xero Small Business Fund. And so customers in each country can apply for funding in some key categories, and for sustainability, trailblazing with technology, strengthening your community connections, or upskilling for the future. So there are things you can apply for, and there'll be regional judges, including some external Xeros in the region, that will be judging those applications to help small business. So we're excited to launch that. So if you're a partner that's out there and you think you've got a small business that would love to apply for that, then definitely check out the Xero Small Business Fund that we're going to be launching. A beautiful business fund.
And do they have to be a Xero user?
I think they do.
I would think so. I mean, that's not a big ask, but
I should double check. I shouldn't double check on that, but I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you on the spot on that.
Yeah.
But
they can always sign up before they put their application in.
There you go. And then will you be here for the Atlanta? I'm in Atlanta. Will you be at the Atlanta show?
Yep. Yeah, okay. I'm speaking at both Atlanta and Austin, and then having to dash to the Southern Hemisphere for our LA when our LA one's happening, because we're hosting Xero's taken the global sponsorship of the FIFA Women's World Soccer Cup.
Oh, right.
We're a lot of partners down there, and down to see obviously it's been held as games across New Zealand and Australia. Obviously, Team USA, the Women's World Cup team in the USA is the powerhouse. So hopefully USA is going to do really well down there. I know they've landed down there, so excited to see that, and then obviously attend our XeroCon. So lots coming up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Ben, thanks for this one. A little bit longer than I think we both thought, but it was a great conversation, great discussion. Certainly appreciate your insight and appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.